Good morning, everyone. I'm Lynn Rios with Fleetistics. I'm here with my CEO, Aaron Eiler, and also our channel partner, Sean Stenson with Route4Me. Sean has a deep understanding of routing in a variety of business models and a product that makes optimal routes quick and easy to adjust throughout the day. We're going to talk with Sean a little bit about the importance of routing, why you need it, and how it can help you. Sean?
Awesome. Well, thanks, Lynn. I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you and I guess everybody else out there. Route4Me, ultimately what we're here to do is help businesses, drive more revenue into their bottom line. When we partner with an organization like a Fleetistics, you guys have solutions that do a really fantastic job of showing a customer what has happened. And that's phenomenal information because you learn all kinds of different information about driver behavior and where they were when they were there. The challenge comes sometimes with, did I execute the plan that I wanted to execute, right? So what was that actual plan? And when you start trying to build a day's worth of work out manually, the odds on you hitting it just right are pretty slim, right? And then trying to match up what your plan was versus what actually happened can be a little bit of a challenge. So when we tie the two organizations together, our ability to pull in that actual data and show it up against the plan, and then our plan is optimized so that you have already started your day in the best possible manner. You now know that you're set up to run the most cost-effective route and drive the most revenue into your business, and then you can validate, did I execute against that plan? And if you did, and it's very obvious to see, you can make those adjustments. So it just really gives a business owner that full range of information that they need to run their business effectively.
Sean, what are some of the variables that Route4Me looks at when it comes to optimization?
Sure. That really kind of goes down to the customer themselves, right? So you could actually have 3, 4, 5 different customers have the same type of business. Let's say they all have landscaping businesses, but they'll all run their business very differently, right? So that's something that's a key component. So there are companies that have challenges that include what we call time windows, right? So I can only take somebody that delivers food to restaurants. They're only allowed in that building during the off hours when they're not busy. And so that can be a real challenge when you're trying to figure out how's the best way to work my route and hit my time windows, because if I'm not there during that window, they're not going to let me in. And that's going to be a major cost to me. I probably owe the customer something because I missed my window. That's a big one, right? And certainly at a bare minimum, I want to try to keep my drivers inside, say, an 8-hour workday because I don't want to pay overtime. So how do I get to all my customers and do it when they need me there and do that in a time where I don't have to pay overtime or I'm not running late, for the day. So those are a couple of the big ones that we see, but, we do weight constraints. We can work with a commercial routing type situations. You get the great big trucks and you don't want to run underneath a bridge that's too short. You kind of, there's a variety of them and odds are we solve for them.
Obviously, the infamous one is, waiting in the left turn lane, the old brown truck optimization that everybody in
Sure.
fleet management is aware of. But you also do things by skill set, by revenue per route, by stops per route, by miles per route. So you've got a wide variety of variables that different fleet operators are going to be interested in tweaking based on how they want to run their business. Again, time windows being one of those things. So,
and that's the key thing, Aaron, is that these routing challenges can be really complex. And I really think where Route4Me sets themselves apart is that we make that complex simple. And Lynn alluded to it earlier. We make it easy to repeat, right? So it's not only easy to learn how to overcome these challenges and do it in a matter of seconds, but it's easy to execute and repeat it day after day after day so that you can focus on what you're really good at. The majority of the customers that we work with, last mile logistics is not their their course, capability and functionality. So they're hiring somebody or some buddies, like multiple people, to handle these challenges and figure them out. And that in itself can be costly. We can enable that to be done in a matter of, minutes at most, and let them focus on what they do best, whatever widget they build, sell, support, whatever, and let us handle that logistics for them and do it quickly and efficiently.
So one of the key things that somebody listening to this this podcast would be a trigger would be if you have somebody that you have hired to do nothing but routing, you need to pay extra attention, because that is a payroll unit that you probably just don't need with this type of service.
Yeah, I would say that it's a person that you could probably leverage in a different way to help your business, right? There's probably other things within that organization that person could help you do that would be beneficial and drive your business forward, other than just spending it routing. I mean, I was working with a customer just a couple months ago that during the discovery process, we understood that it took them 9 hours a day to build their routes every day, 6 days a week. So 9 hours. I mean, that's a whole person. And they had 3 different people that were involved in that process. One worked for a couple hours, another one worked for 3 hours, another one worked for, a couple hours. But when we told them that, I showed them that we could do this in a matter of, it took like 10 minutes to build their file from scratch and get it, all run through. They freaked out, right? Because they're like, there are so many different things that I'm responsible for that I can now get to because I couldn't do it before in our old process. So it's things like that, right? Because these folks are typically not only responsible for routing, they have other hats. And they're probably hats that are really important to the business that they're able to maintain.
One key aspect is dynamic versus static routes.
Yeah.
Right. And, no matter what business you're in, you either have a dynamic route, which is built on the fly, maybe the day before, it's changing every day, or you have a static route, which is the same customers on the third Tuesday of every month. And, you think that that's going to be truly static. I haven't seen too many fleets where they truly have static routes. There's always something that comes up, somebody cancels, and you got to reschedule and things like that. So those inefficiencies are still in static routes that may not just be as complicated as dynamic routes. Do you guys work with both static and dynamic routing?
We sure do. And, you bring up an interesting point with the static routes, because the thing that I see is truly that they are not as static as you think. And typically when we run into people that have static routes, those routes have been around for years. And so there are things that have changed, like the road networks themselves, or just the customer base has added, removed over time, and they've just kind of manually stuck people into these routes. And we'll go in and pull that through and do a complete total reoptimization of the fleet, and just show where they could get to those customers with 2, 3, depending on the size of the fleet, maybe 10 less vehicles, right? It could be kind of crazy if you have a really big fleet, but it's those customers that are struggling to figure out, how do I get to all my customers? I really can't bring on any more customers because I'm tapped out with my ability to service them. And then all of a sudden we free up, a couple of different vehicles where they can not only get to those customers more effectively, but now they have additional vehicles to go bring on more customers. So you're able to drive more revenue without adding any more assets. I mean, that's a huge win for a customer. And that happens a lot in that static route environment.
When I got into this business back, actually right before I got into this business, I was in the service business, pest control specifically,
right,
with one of the largest, which may be the largest pest control company now. They used to do routing by writing the customer's name on a yellow sticky, and they would put those yellow stickies up on a map, and then they would move those stickies around, and it would have the customer's name, and it would have third Tuesday, and that's how they would do things. And one of the hardest parts of routing and routing technology is to get over the mindset of territories. It used to be that you might have 2 guys servicing 2 different customers, one on one side of the street and one on the other side of the street, and the line was down the middle, and that's how they serviced them. Instead of the guy walking across the street and doing the service, they sent 2 trucks.
Correct.
So when you start to look at routing, you have to be able to let go of the mindset of territories, because it's not about who owns what area. There's no ownership to geography at this point. It's all about how do we get the service done in the most efficient manner. And sometimes that means that you're going, in different directions based on the big picture efficiency requirements that are kind of dictated by the logic that goes into, getting the route set up.
Sean, do you have a feel for what the return on investment time frame is for new customers coming onto your product?
Yeah, it's in a lot of cases it's one day.
That's
So
crazy.
it's bananas. I'll talk to that in a second. I want to step back to what Aaron was talking about just a second ago with territories, and I completely agree. The thing though is that the flexibility of our solution is we truly can work with a customer that has a territory base, help them make that more efficient, and then maybe even change those territories because there could be some really valid reasons why they have them. And so we have the ability to create these, territories on the fly or static where you could monitor how many different customers you have in each area so that you don't overload. You can do some balancing effect. You think about somebody that's maybe in a sanitation environment. They may need to have more of a territory type thing because they've got, hundreds and hundreds of customers that they're servicing every day in an area. And so they maybe want to break that up into quadrants or something. So we do have the flexibility to support that as well as take that person who's locked into that old school territory concept that really could benefit from wiping those things away and just optimizing their days based on, how many vehicles they have and how many customers they get to. So the flexibility is there for both. And that ties into what Lynn was just saying is that I've seen scenarios where I've taken someone's current data file. I just did one of these last week where I took their actual route and I pulled it through for a Monday, and then as is, right, in a static environment. Like I didn't change a thing. And then I turned around and pulled it through with some optimization that we had discussed that they were interested in. And, we paid for the whole solution day one, right? Day one, because we were able to remove 2 vehicles out of their daily operations because they were running in opposite directions to try to do things that was costing them a lot of time. Right. And so when we showed them that, they were just like, holy smokes, right? They signed up right then and there. So it's, that's not always the case, but I feel pretty comfortable that the efficiencies that we can find from just reducing the amount of miles and the amount of time that it takes to service your routes is just those 2 items alone are probably going to pay for it in the first week or two. And then you take into consideration whoever's building the routes on the back end, their time. You start taking into consideration some of your customer service benefits, the wear and tear in your vehicles, all the different things that kind of come into what it costs to run a day's operations. It can be pretty significant.
I know when I got started back in the 90s with 90s technology, when they routed my branch, we went from 32 vehicles to 25. Mm-hmm. So, obviously at that point we had to let some people go. So obviously pick the weakest performers, but we took 7 trucks out of service. We got rid of 7 employee payroll units, the insurance, the benefits, all of those things associated with those 7 trucks.
Correct.
We took those customers and we put them on the routes of the remaining 25 vehicles. They got more work done in the same amount of time during the day, and they were commission spiffed. So they made more money for the same number of hours in a workday. So they were happy, and the branch saw an immediate significant jump in profitability. So I fully agree that your ROI with this type of technology can be immediate. It is amazing. GPS tracking does a great job of holding people's feet to the fire. Hey, if the route is set up a certain way, and we ran into this, we give somebody a route and they said, well, it can't be done that way. It's impossible. I can't do this. I can't do that. Well, then you slap the tracking technology on and then you verify, yes, in fact, you took a detour from the route and you went over here, and you might be used to doing that. You've probably done it that way for 10 years.
Right.
But it's still inefficient. right?
Sure.
You're still trying to force Mrs. Jones into being serviced at 3 o'clock on Thursday, and you tell me that Mrs. Jones insists on that, but it's costing us more money to service Mrs. Jones out of sequence than it is than the revenue we're generating from Mrs. Jones.
Yep.
So oftentimes it took a manager to pick up the phone and call Mrs. Jones and say, Mrs. Jones, hey, do you mind if we move you to Wednesday at 1? And like 9 times out of 10, it was like, yeah, that's no problem. The technician just had a belief in things having to be done a certain way. We moved Mrs. Jones. Now she's a profitable customer. Before, she wasn't even worth keeping because, there's no money to be made.
Yep.
So I saw that a ton of times where the technicians had a certain way of doing things, or they would build a big lunch into the middle of the day sometimes, or
other stops.
Fridays, they'd run their routes heavy Monday through Thursday, and Friday would be a shorter day, things like that. So, the combination of the technology really kind of drives the best end result. And I've seen it firsthand. It really is something when you take a look at it.
We hope you'll stay tuned for part 2 of this informative interview.